Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of UPressPlay Sports. I'm your host, Richard Pereira, and joining me today is sports editor and Maddox Greenberg, and editor at large, formerly sports editor, Cameron Priester. Hey guys, how's it been going this past week?
I've been doing pretty good. A lot of good sports to talk about, national and FAU with baseball going into the tournament. So yeah, I'm doing good. A lot of good stuff to talk about.
And Richard, as I said before we started recording, I am very excited with our Celtics having beat the Heat in Game 4. So very excited to talk about sports today, especially going on with NBA and figure out who's going to be facing the Denver Nuggets in Denver in Game 1.
Yeah, definitely. But before I talk about what's going on with the conference finals in the NBA, we will first start off with FU baseball. The regular season came to a close this past Saturday. They finished with a 33-23 record, 16-14 in conference play, and heading into the Conference USA tournament, which is starting as of the time of this recording today on Wednesday, May 24. They are seated at number 5 in the bracket, and they are taking on Western Kentucky, who is the 4th seed, at 8:30 p.m. tonight at Eastern time. And Western Kentucky did sweep FAU on the road. Actually, FAU lost in a sweep on the road in Bowling Green to Western Kentucky. The first 2 games, they had pretty good leads, but they blew them. Very unfortunate. And then the third game, Western Kentucky just had pretty solid control over that game. So this is a very big first round matchup for the Owls, knowing that they didn't win a game at all against Western Kentucky this season. What will be key to them getting out of this matchup with a win and most likely facing Dallas Baptist in the next round, hopefully?
I'd say kind of the biggest key for them is putting not only that series against Western Kentucky where they struggled, but kind of like the regular season behind you. It's a brand new season, and kind of leaning on the experience they have all season playing against very, very, very talented baseball programs. They've played Miami 4 times this year, who's been nationally ranked. They've played Florida Gulf Coast, who's been nationally ranked 4 times this season. They've played Dallas Baptist, a conference foe, who's a very good baseball program, and just the entire Conference USA is a really good baseball league. So leaning on that experience against that you already have against good teams, I think will be kind of key for them going into this game against Western Kentucky.
I do believe that FAU they could have a chance to win this, but they got to have better job of pitching. They have to make sure that not have that many subs at pitching, make sure pitching is consistent, and just get 3 strikes against each batter, and trust the offense. On Shanuel, right now, Conference USA Player of the Year, I believe, and that guy is definitely going to MLB probably the end of the season. So this guy, very good. He just trust him and trust the offense. Make sure the defense does a good job preventing Western Kentucky, because we have lost all in this entire season. We've lost to Western Kentucky. We also have that mindset in that now that the regular season's over, is like should be a fresh start for Coach McCormick and the Owls, and to not see Western Kentucky as a team that you lost the entire season to, but think of yourself as the Owls that took out Miami, who was nationally ranked, who took out Florida Gulf Coast, who were on a pretty hot streak until the last game, but not worry about being down 1 game, losing 1 game on a streak. So don't worry about having a 1 game losing streak, and think about fresh start and try to stay consistent in the pitching game. And when you have a lead, stay consistent with that lead and keep the lead against Western Kentucky, because they're a very good baseball program.
Yeah, and definitely a huge congratulations to Nolan Chanu for getting Conference USA Player of the Year. It's a very big award, representing himself as the pretty much the best player in the conference, and he really had a spectacular season. It really was a breakout season, getting onto the national rankings of his stats and home runs, RBIs, on base percentage. You could name any category, and Nolan Shannon would be right there within the top 50, top 100, top 100 at least. Like, he was on it. And batting average, he has the best. He has the best in the country. That's all you need to know. He is very good at hitting the ball, and he will be very important to how far the Owls go in this tournament. And of course, it's not just him. There's Jackson Ross and Dylan Goldstein, who got first team all conference alongside January. And then you have Goldstein, who got second team. And shout out to Tyler Murphy, who made all freshman who in his first season with the Owls as one of their mainly one of their relieving pitchers, and later getting some starting opportunities on the mound. He got all freshmen. So they definitely have a pretty good group of players who can really help contribute. And then not to mention Spencer Rich and Christian Adams. And when he's on a very good day, Caleb Pendleton. So all the Owls have to do is just be consistent with their batting, and especially with their pitching from the bullpen, because the bullpen will really be the wild card for the Owls. Like, either going to have a very good pitching night or you're going to have a bad one. So against Western Kentucky, it's very important that it is a good night for the bullpen. So best of luck to them as they try to make a deep run in the tournament. And without that, we'll conclude our time with FU Sports. Now we head on to national sports. And yes, we can finally start talking about the NBA formally. So the Western Conference Finals is over. The Lakers were very competitive in every game of the series, but unfortunately, especially in game 4, they couldn't get the win to stay alive for another game as they got swept by the Denver Nuggets, who are making their first ever appearance in the NBA Finals. Led by Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and then with a very good supporting cast of Michael Porter Jr., Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, and wow. It's been an amazing year for the Nuggets, getting top seed in the West, having the best record in that conference, and just doing what they did to Minnesota, taking care of them in 5, dealing with a star-studded offense in Phoenix, just torching them in 6 games, and then just taking care of business against the Lakers, sweeping them in 4 games, despite what was an incredible year for the Lakers after what they went through in the first half of the season. So I want to know your thoughts on this series and how you look at the Nuggets and the Lakers with how their outcomes of the season went.
Well, I guess let's start with the Nuggets since they won. Just a fantastic team. Everybody knows about Nikola Jokic. We probably should have been a first three-time MVP, 3P MVP, excuse me. And then you have Jamal Murray right after him, who's averaging north of 30 as a 2-man, and that's a spectacular team. And then might not even be they're not, you couldn't even call them top heavy, which is crazy when your 2 best players are that good, just because the supporting cast is just that locked in at that moment. So they no matter what happens, right. And no matter what happens on the East, after playing a series that great and just kind of dismantling a really great Lakers team, they have to be your favorite. Just spectacular stuff to watch. But talking about the Lakers, it's hard to. It is disappointing how great they looked throughout the playoffs and then to finish on a sweep. But I don't understand the mindset behind like chalking it up as a loss. I do partly understand when you have the greatest player of all time and then another superstar in AD. Every season should be championship or bust. But when at one point you were 2-10, midway through the season, go through almost complete roster turnover, and then to still find yourself in the conference finals, it's hard for me to chalk that up as a failure or whatever. They do have some decisions to make, especially with kind of the narrative around LeBron, and we don't know if that whatever he's chirping about is him trying to get some more roster turnover. But yeah, I don't think it's a success, but they do have some decisions to make if they ultimately want to get over the hump in the future.
Yeah, for that series, Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, as Cameron said, the Nuggets are very good. Nikola Jokic had a phenomenal shot he had over, I believe it was LeBron around like the third quarter. That was an amazing shot he had.
I like
And
audibly yelled out loud, like, "Oh my God, that was insane."
I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe he made that. And that just shows how good Jokic is as a player and having that supporting cast around him. I said earlier in the podcast, a couple of episodes ago, before the series starts, saying the Lakers could take out the Nuggets because they don't have really that deep of a bench, that deep of a depth on the depth chart. But they showed, Michael Malone and the Denver Nuggets showed they could do it. As long as Jamal Murray puts up 30 and just Jokic just plays lights out, the Nuggets can be good. And I gotta say, the ending of that game, I was shocked to see that was 4 seconds. The Lakers have the ball. LeBron, for some reason, decides to go for a layup. Like, I understand he wants to go and like tie the game and send it to overtime, but that opportunity you have to make a 3-pointer with 4 seconds left and send the game to 5, you should take that chance. And now the Lakers lost, they got swept, and now it's looking like LeBron may end up retiring, which is pretty surprising. And it might depend on if whoever ends up drafting Bronny, LeBron may come out of retirement, but I don't see really LeBron wanting to get out of retirement. I don't really want to see LeBron being in retirement just yet. And I just gotta say, like, the Nuggets are really good. I think whoever's gonna win that Heat Celtics series, there's gonna be a challenge for them having someone to guard Nikola Jokic, because he's able to make that shot over LeBron James. Then it's gonna be difficult for whoever's gonna guard him.
Yeah, when it comes to Jokic, it's not the fact that he made it once; he made it twice at the shot clock buzzer. So he basically did shot clock cheese twice in the game. That is crazy, and the way he made those shots is also crazy as well. But yeah, the Lakers season, especially with how they started, mainly for the first half of the season, it was an incredible turnaround. They got to this point after what they went through, and you have to put respect on that. This was an incredible season for the Lakers, especially for the second half of the season with the trades they made, getting Rui Hachimura, who's an absolute stud, and they should do everything they can to keep him around. Same goes for Austin Reeves. They should definitely look around. They should definitely look to developing Jared Vanderbilt's offensive game. Like, he's very versatile on the defensive end, but his offense definitely needs some improvement so he doesn't become a black hole in that area of the court. But yeah, like, just keeping that overall core of players and then adding on to it, maybe improving from D'Angelo Russell to maybe Kyrie Irving, who is a free agent this offseason. So if they get him and maybe get Draymond, who could be a free agent as well, that defense is going to be scary. That defense is going to be scary. But yeah, anyhow, when it comes to LeBron's retirement rumors, I don't believe it for a second.
Bluff. Easy bluff. He's not retiring.
Documentary
He
or
put up 40 points against the Nuggets. He is still good.
yeah, he said he's like better than 90 to 95% of players in the league. So
Which is true. That's true. He is.
yeah. But yeah, I don't believe the retirement rumors. I believe one thing I do believe, next year will be his last legitimate chance at a championship. I believe that to be 100% his last chance. The year after that, I think that's just the year he gets to play with Bronny. And then after that, he retires in 2025, and then we see the documentaries go out, and kumbaya. The end of LeBron James' incredible, legendary career, and probably 1A or 1B as the greatest player of all time in the NBA. So, yeah, again, incredible season for the Lakers. I'm really interested to see what they do in the offseason, what kind of trades they do, what kind of additions they add to the team, and whether they get some superstars or star players to bolster their strength, because they weren't a 7 seed in this playoffs. If they had this overall roster, they would have been the top 3 easy, because this team meshed together very well. Offensively, they definitely need 3-point shooting. That was very clear to me. Even after the trades, they still need 3-point shooting, and they can definitely add that in free agency, especially if they go after Seth Curry. like having come off the bench as one of their best 3-point shooters on the perimeter. So he's one of those players. But yeah, we'll see what the Lakers do in the offseason. And of course, congrats to Denver. And we'll see who they'll be facing in the NBA Finals once the Eastern Conference Finals is over. And that goes to our next topic, the Celtics Heat. The Celtics, as a Celtics fan, I did enjoy watching the Lakers in their series against the Nuggets more than I did watching the first 3 games of this series. I don't think anybody can get mad at that. Even the Celtics fans, I don't think they can get mad at that, especially with how Boston did not play up to their standards against Miami in the first 3 games of the series, especially game 3 where they got blown out in embarrassing fashion. So it was a very good thing to see that they bounced back and actually responded the way they did in game 4. Is bringing it back to Boston for game 5, where they could make it 3-2 and going back to Miami, all the pressure's on Miami because they had a 3-0 lead and they still haven't sealed the deal. So what are you guys thinking with how this series could end up winding down?
Well, I do like that Boston finally showed a little fight in game 4 last night, because not only does I think that win kind of save this, I don't want to say save the series because I still think it's Miami's, but it keeps them competitive, like gives them any chance in that series. But I think it also kind of saves them from some big decisions next year, because I feel like losing game 4 in a sweep after that embarrassing performance in game 3, their upper management, they can't run it back after something like that, getting swept like that. They would have some decisions to make, whether that be with like moving on from some players or maybe figuring out what to do with Joe Mazzulla. But I think winning that game kind of saves some of those conversations for now, at least. But about game 4, I just don't think Miami didn't appear to have that same kind of edge, fight, whatever you want to call it, that they did have in those first 3 games. And Boston finally kind of woke up a little, and Jimmy cooled off a bit. Bam, who's been having a really good playoffs, cooled off a bit. So I still think it's Miami series if they play with that, go into Boston with that same, edge, fight. Jimmy going to Al Horford. That's what Miami needs. So if they can get back into that, I think it's Miami's. But yeah, crazier things that we've seen a 3-1 comeback. Why not a 3-0? But I definitely think it's Miami right now.
In the beginning, I definitely thought it would be a Denver-Miami series after seeing Denver sweep the Lake. Actually, not even before they swept the Lakers, seeing Denver in a 3-0 lead, Miami in a 3-0 lead. I was like, this is going to be just historical, as both conference finals have been sweeps. So I do think this game was very critical for Boston of them winning, because we just need to have a win under our belt, but also because everyone was saying, oh, well, these high expectations and going against the Heat and you lose 3, your season's done for, and we don't want to get embarrassed. We're a historical franchise. We don't want to get embarrassed by this, I think, like 35-year franchise in the Miami Heat. So that game was very critical. I think end up potentially winning game 5 in Boston, putting pressure on the Heat, definitely proves a fight in us, and that we are not like a fluke. We are very good. And with this head coach, I do think we maybe could get another head coach. I think, in my opinion, maybe another head coach next year, regardless of how the season ends. Just because even though Ime Udoka, what he did was bad, listening to shows on ESPN, they were saying how like Ime Udoka, he was very much in the players' face, got them to get back into the game with the spirit. In the past 3 games, we were not doing that because Mazzulla was not turning into the Celtics saying, "Hey, step your guys' game up. This is a very critical game for us to win." And I think everyone's following the the illusion of like, well, Tatum scored 51 in the game 7. He's going to bring up that momentum game 1, game 2, and he didn't. And I do think this was when we desperately needed as a franchise and as a fan base to make this at least an interesting series in a way. I do think he could potentially win this now, but I'm hearing like on Twitter, like because there have been ending up that games that people were that when the game was 3-0, teams have come back. They got to game 7 3 times. A team has gotten to game 7, but they have not won any of those games. There's a chance we could make history because a couple years ago, the Boston Red Sox were down 3 games to the New York Yankees, and the ALCS, and we ended up winning that and winning the World Series. We were down 3 games. We ended up winning 4 straight. We could do that again as Boston. We are a city that is built by comebacks, and whenever our back's against the wall, we were able to fight back. And I think it does go into great coaching. And I think Missoula, he did a great job as a head coach in his first year. Great job as a coach. He was assistant coach for 3 years, and then he was the earliest one of the other coaches that were remaining. The other coaches that were remaining, they were assistant coaches for like 5 to 11 years. And this guy was 3 years an assistant, didn't have time to make a new his staff in his image. He did not have time to do that, and got the Celtics to the second best record in the league, and us all the way to the conference finals. So I do think there's some pressure, at least for the Celtics, where last season we made it to the finals and we lost. I think I forgot what it was, game 6, I believe. So we made it all the way to the finals last year, and now like a little bit of pressure, like now that right now are one of the best, a really good coach in Ime Udoka, of what happened with him. He's gone. Celtics, this new coach, and ended up making it to the conference finals. It is very important for us to win game 6 and put the pressure on Miami back in Miami, and to at least tell all the haters, like, hey, even though we were down 3, we still have that fight. We are still that good team. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum should still stay as a duo. We are very good as a team because we still have the same exact roster as last season when we won the finals. But just because of the coaching was changed, that kind of improved later on in the series. Because round 1, we won 4-2 against the Hawks, in which we could have easily won game 4, game 5 against. Then the Sixers, which we didn't win game 1, we ended up winning 2 straight when we were down 3-2. So those 2 series we could have easily won, but because of how the coaching was, it kind of reverberated in a different way. And now we're looking at 3.
I think we definitely should give Missoula just a little more leeway, though, because I think people don't kind of understand that, like, he was a behind the bench coach less than a year ago, if I'm not mistaken, and then like kind of the circumstances he got thrown into the coaching job to make it to the conference finals. You can nitpick about some decision making late in games, but I mean, I think within the circumstances that he's got thrown in the job, performance in the regular season, I think it matters a little bit. But I think we should give him some leeway. Now, I don't know if we give the same leeway to players who are just kind of not showing up on some games, but I think we should give Missoula a little more, I don't know, margin of error, whatever you want to call it. He's in the conference finals. Yes, there's like things to talk about, but I don't think we can like pin, a series or anything on Missoula. If anything, I think we should look at the roster.
Yeah. I do think that, well, right now, Tatum, he had 33 points last night. We did a great job in the third quarter, which was very exciting because third quarters we have not been good in this series. So, as I said,
will he show up in game 5 though? Yeah,
and I do think that goes back to my how I see the MVP in a way where in times where your team really needs you need to show out. So it's not how many good points, how well you play throughout the season. In moments where your team needs you have to show up. The Heat, they had a chance to sweep. Jimmy Butler, their star player, had 29 points and 9 rebounds. Tatum, Celtics were down 3 games. He had 33 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. And with a supporting cast for the Celtics, we helped in a huge way. And we ended up winning game 4. And again, that goes back to, as you said, with Joe Mazzulla, and like we had the second seed, but as we see with this Heat team, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I think the seeding, I think for NBA is kind of, I think maybe should be question of maybe end of the season probably, just because seeing well, right now the play-in is like a stupid idea, but with the seeding, you have a chip on your shoulder, pressure on you, where we're the underdogs. We have to show out, lights out, play well. And with how the Heat were, they were the 8th seed. They lost to the Hawks. They were in less than 3 minutes in the game. They were down 6 points to the Toronto Raptors. They almost were even in the tournament. We're in the playoff bracket, and now they came to 8th seed, then destroyed the Bucks, then took out New York, and now they're in a huge lead against the Celtics. Is that how you finish? How is that how you start? It's how you finish. And seeing how well that team has played. Same with the Lakers, them being 7th seed, started off 2-10, did a great job in free agency, and Galloway took out the defending champs and got in the game to the conference finals. Sure, they were swept, but they got there, and no one thought they would. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I do think that is very critical in the playoffs. And I think seeding should be thought of a little bit more.
Yeah. When it comes to Joe Mazzulla, if the Celtics got blown out in Game 4, I really think they would have axed Mazzulla right then and there. And my favorite to be the next Celtics coach after Mazzulla would be Monty Williams. I think he would be a great choice for that Celtics squad. Maybe Nick Nurse, even though he's being considered one of their finalists for the Phoenix Suns, coincidentally. So, and Doc Rivers, very shocking, but it's kind of to be expected because Doc Rivers has a lot of coaching experience. Whether it be, you take the good and the bad when it comes to Doc Rivers. It's for better or worse, whether you want it for his championship experience or just somebody who can understand the veteran players, because the Suns do have plenty of veteran players and that could help them out for heading into next season. So we'll see where the Suns go for that, for their next head coach. But for the Celtics, it just really depends on what happens for the rest of the series, because it could still end up with Boston letting go of Mazzulla and moving on to a head coach who is ready for the challenge of bringing them a championship. Because Mazzulla, I do agree with you guys here on this front that Mazzulla was inserted there like quite immediately after Udoka left, so he was definitely rushed into that position. So he handled it very well for the regular season. They were balling, and they slipped a little bit in the second half of the season, and we see how shaky they've been this postseason. But if there's a time for them to really like come together and just really go off, it's right now, because they have a 3-1 deficit against Miami, a team they beat in 7 games last year, and they're gonna have to do it in 7 again. So we'll see how things go for the Celtics against Miami, but well, anything can happen. And for our last topic of the day, we have the NHL, and they're also in their conference finals. And lo and behold, the Florida Panthers, as at the time of this recording, they're playing tonight for a chance to sweep the Carolina Hurricanes and advance to their Stanley Cup final. So guys, and of course, got to mention the Vegas Knights 3-0 lead over Dallas. So what are you guys thinking with the Panthers Cinderella run to most like possible Cinderella run to the Stanley Cup final?
I think it's just awesome to kind of be. I'm a Chicago sports guy, but most of everybody I interact with for like FAU type work, they're all South Florida sports fans. So seeing how much not only this Panthers run, but the past year, kind of with all the success South Florida sports have, starting with kind of Miami and FAU, the Heat, the Panthers, seeing how much like this kind of means to them is so cool. And watching the Panthers play, is been awesome to see. It such like an awesome team culture they have. Kind of just like the us against the world mentality, starting with taking down Boston earlier in the playoffs. Seeing the way they band together, that like playing with house money kind of mentality has been awesome. So get one more win, get to the Stanley Cup Finals, and just keep it rolling there.
So I am a native of Florida. I was born in the west coast of Florida in Tarpon. So I grew up as a Boston fan, even though my family is Philadelphia and I live in the Tampa Bay region. But seeing the Panthers take out my Bruins, and we had a good shot of advancing. We were amazing. We had a President's Trophy, the best record in the NHL, the most points in the NHL history. We were doing phenomenal, and then we blew a lead to Florida, and
3-1.
now they're going against everyone. It's like them against the world mentality, which is fun to see as a fan. But I think if it's your team that lost to them, you do not want to see them advance. And seeing them right now potentially sweeping the Hurricanes, and I was thinking Golden Knights, Hurricanes, Stanley Cup, which would have been exciting. But it looks like it could be Golden Knights and the Panthers. And Vegas is a tremendous franchise. How they started the season in 2017, made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, lost I think in Game 7 against the Capitals, and then 4 of the 6 seasons they are as a franchise, they made it to the playoffs and did a great job throughout the playoffs. So no surprise the Golden Knights are back here. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens tonight and tomorrow night with the Golden Knights also in a 3-0 lead.
Yeah, for South Florida fans, this has been an incredible year. First starting off with FEU in Miami, their runs to the Final Four of March Madness. Then you have Miami making their run to the conference finals and maybe possibly the NBA finals, most likely, if they advance to take on Denver. And then we have, of course, the Florida Panthers, who are also a win away from the Stanley Cup finals. So again, South Florida has had everything to be grateful for this year, especially this year. Like, a lot to be proud of, and we'll see if they can end up with a trophy by the end of this year. So we'll see how it goes.